ആത്മസ്വരൂപങ്ങളായിരിക്കുന്ന എല്ലാവർക്കും നമസ്കാരം. ആദരണീയായ പോപ്പ് ഫ്രാൻസിസും മറ്റ് വിശിഷ്ടാതിഥികളെ ആദ്യമായി
for participating in such a historic gathering. I take this opportunity to offer my gratitude for the determination and social commitment of His Holiness, and to Chancellor of the Pontifical Academy of Sciences, respected Bishop Marcelo Sanchez Sorondo, who has worked very hard to make this assembly a reality. Human trafficking is one of the worst curses that plague society, not only for this century, but since the beginning of time. The more we try to eradicate slavery and forced labor, it seems to rebound with doubled strength, like an evil ghost that keeps haunting us. As His Holiness has stated, human trafficking is an open wound on the body of contemporary society. It is a crime against humanity. It is the duty of each country to implement laws that work towards eradicating this extremely cruel and immoral crime, and to liberate and protect victims from such a fate. It is also the moral responsibility of every citizen who is committed to justice and social welfare. We're all aware of the bitter truth that this problem cannot easily be solved, for the wound of human trafficking is centuries old and extremely deep-rooted. We've been granted the blessing of life through God's compassion, so this life should be spent performing good deeds as an offering. To destroy another person's life is a misuse of God's gift. All living beings are instruments in the hands of the divine. The law of God's court is righteousness, or dharma. Let us all strive to respect and follow this law. Human trafficking is unrighteous. All religious leaders have the ability to help both the perpetrators, who trap their fellow human beings in the net of enslavement, as well as the victims who get caught in this net. They both need to be guided to the right path. We should be prepared to fight a battle to uphold righteousness. This is not a war meant to kill, but to save the helpless from the grip of demonic minds. We don't want a response born out of revenge due to perceived differences. We need to develop empathy, realizing the divinity within everyone. Our mind has created many divisions in the form of religion, caste, language, and national boundaries. Let us try to create a bridge of all-encompassing pure love to break down these self-created walls. Any hardened heart will soften in love. Love can spread light through even the densest darkness. Selfless love transforms the mind from a demon that enslaves us into our own liberator. Those who traffic and enslave others fall prey to a negative mind. Religious leaders should, without ulterior motives, formulate an action plan of rehabilitation based on selfless love and spirituality, the essence of all faiths. Remaining silent in the face of unrighteousness is unrighteous. Governments and political leaders have to establish laws without loopholes so the guilty can't escape. In many countries, the government and NGOs are fighting against trafficking, but we see no reduction in the power and massive financial gain of those who make a business out of treating living beings as mere objects to be used and eventually discarded. The number of victims is rapidly increasing. Like the roots of an enormous tree, the roots of this tragedy are pervading deeper into society. If we fail to do something effective against this injustice happening right in front of our eyes, it will constitute a travesty against future generations. Victims of human trafficking lose their self-respect and fall into a pit of despair. They're often used by terrorists as drug mules, suicide bombers, and other illegal activities. Some foods we eat daily are produced by children who are first forced to work day and night. Victims' kidneys and other body parts become commodities sold in the marketplace. When these victims are no longer useful and have developed psychological problems as a result of abuse or contract incurable diseases such as AIDS, they are finally thrown out onto the streets. I've personally seen and listened to thousands upon thousands of examples of human trafficking. Once a woman came to me and burst into tears. She said, "Amma, I have AIDS. My only desire is to see my child before I die. Please help me. When I was 9 years old, I worked as a domestic servant for a family. There I met an elderly man. He promised a better salary and various other benefits. Because my family had financial problems, I left with him. When we reached the new place, I saw there were many many other girls there, but I wasn't allowed to speak to them. Finally, I realized it was a brothel, and men started to rape me regularly. At first, I felt angry as well as guilty for what I was being made to do, but as time went by, I lost all sense of dignity and even started to find pleasure in my work. After 5 years, I gave birth to a baby girl. They let me breastfeed for the first month, then suddenly took her away. After a few years, I was diagnosed with HIV. They didn't allow me to see my child. When I became really sick, they promised to take me to a hospital, but instead, they abandoned me. I begged to see my child just one more time, but they never agreed. They didn't even take me back to the brothel. Everyone I approached for help treated me with disgust and loathing. The only thing they didn't do is throw stones at me. All doors close in my face. I cannot live in this world anymore. I just want to see my child once more before I die. Will they inject her with hormones to make her look older, use her like they used me, and eventually throw her out? Hearing her pathetic story, I sent some people to try to find her daughter. It was a difficult task. Other women narrated their horrifying story to Amma. A man used to visit us regularly. He would help with whatever was needed, and we became very comfortable with him. After a while, he offered to take our children abroad to work in his friend's company, promising to send us large amounts of money each month. He gave each of us an advance payment of 1,000 rupees, taking our children with him. We've not seen him or our children since. We're not sure where our children are, but heard they were taken to a brothel. When people went to search the brothel, they were told that the children had already been trafficked. Saying this, they burst into tears. Today, the value of everything has increased. Men sell their sperm and women their ova for a great deal of money. But ironically, a child can be purchased for prostitution or forced labor for a pathetic sum of $10 to $20. In spite of taking regular medication, if a diabetic continues to eat sweet food, their blood sugar level will increase. So diet control and lifestyle modification are more important than medication. Impoverished children who lack access to proper education because schools are scarce often only go to 4th or 8th grade. We need to provide the new generation, as well as victims of human trafficking, with a practical education to help create a greater awareness within them. We need to awaken their latent courage and self-confidence to help them arise. They need to realize they are not helpless and vulnerable like kittens. They are mighty and courageous lions. We have to help them elevate their minds. There are 2 types of education: education for a living and education for life. When we study in college striving to become a doctor, lawyer, or engineer, this is education for a living. On the other hand, education for life requires an understanding of the essential principles of spirituality. The main purpose of education should be to impart a culture of the heart, a culture based on enduring values. When Amma's devotees go to villages to give vocational training, women are also given life enrichment and sex education classes. As a result, many young women have been able to save themselves from people trying to sell them for prostitution, sometimes even their own parents. Amma has been able to help 80% of the women who were forced into prostitution and came to her for help. The other 20% are continuing the same way of life. They don't want to change, and Amma has not tried to force them. Lust is a kind of hunger. Even if we feel hungry, we don't devour everything we can get our hands on. If we go to a restaurant and see what others have ordered, we may think, I wish I'd ordered that dish instead. But even if we feel this way, we exercise a certain amount of restraint. In this manner, we need to exercise restraint for everything in life, especially lust. Spiritual values need to be inculcated at a young age. When Amma was a child, her mother would say, never urinate in the river. The river is the Divine Mother. When we swam in the backwaters, even though the water was cold, remembering our mother's words, we could restrain ourselves. When we develop a reverential attitude towards a river, we will never defile it. Our respect towards the river helps to keep it clean, and a clean river ultimately benefits everyone who uses it. It's not important to debate whether God exists or not. What is important is that devotion and faith in God help to sustain good values and righteousness in society. These values are what bring balance to society and the entire creation. Roads are meant for vehicles to drive on, but if we say, I can drive however I wish, we might get into an accident. Just as there are traffic rules, there are similar rules for everything in life. Spiritual values help us to live according to these rules. A lot of people are working hard to put a stop to child labor, but just by banning it, we won't be able to solve the problem. Once a man brought a 10-year-old boy to Amma. He wanted Amma to raise the boy in the ashram and told the story of how he became an orphan. His father had died 2 years before, so his mother and sister went to work in a matchbox factory near their home. His mother was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease and was bedridden, unable to work. His sister was paid very little, but just enough to make ends meet. After a while, laws were established that banned child labor. The owner of the factory was arrested and his company shut down. All the children working there were let go. Distraught at the loss of their only source of income, the mother sent her son to school in the morning. Then she poisoned her daughter and herself. It is justifiable to shut down such factories, but we often forget the families of young children who depend on these factories in order to live. Before we push drastically to stop child labor and human trafficking, first we need to build a foundation to help these families become self-sufficient and ensure their future. Spirituality begins and culminates in compassion. If we could transform compassion from a mere word into a path of action, we would be able to solve 90% of the world's humanitarian problems. There are two types of poverty in the world. The first is due to lack of food, clothing, and shelter. The second is the poverty of love and compassion. We need to tackle the second type of poverty first. If we have love and compassion, we will wholeheartedly serve and help those who lack basic needs. According to the Bhagavad Gita, the creator and creation are one, just as waves in the ocean are one and the same. Though we can see 1,000 suns reflected in 1,000 pots of water, there's only one sun. Likewise, the consciousness within all of us is the same. Just as our hand spontaneously reaches out to soothe the other hand when in pain, may we all console and support others as we would ourselves. People from all nations and religions become victims to the ravaging effects of human enslavement and experience extreme abuse and suffering. Their physical and mental pain doesn't differentiate between language, race, or skin color. These victims are just a single group of humans struggling against the clutches of endless sorrow and emotional suppression. There are several antibiotic ointments to help to heal external wounds, but there's only one medicine that can heal the wounds of our mind. This medicine is pure love. In order to heal the mental and emotional wounds inflicted upon the victims of human trafficking, we need to care for them with selfless love. This will bring them into the light of a free life, away from the darkness forcefully imposed upon them in the past. Only religious and spiritual leaders can bring together a task force of social servants to carry out this sacred mission. May the inherent compassion within all living beings awaken. May we all develop the discernment to love and respect life and those living around us. We are not isolated islands, but interconnected links on the chain of God's creation. May we realize this great truth. May we forget all the pain and suffering of the past and forgive all the hurt we have experienced. May we bow down in reverence to all that is good in the world and find eternal happiness.
നന്മയുടെ മുമ്പിൽ കൃതജ്ഞതാപൂർവ്വം നമസ്കരിക്കാനും അവർക്ക് കഴിയട്ടെ. ഇതിന് സാധാരണ പറയുന്നത് അനേക തലങ്ങളിലുള്ള ഒരു ഉപാധികൾ, അനേക തലമുള്ളൊരു പ്രവർത്തനമാണെന്ന് പറയും. അതിന് പരിഹാരം അനേക തലത്തിൽ കൊണ്ടുവന്നാലേ സാധിക്കുള്ളൂ. ധാർമ്മിക വശമുണ്ട്, സാമ്പത്തിക വശമുണ്ട്, അതുപോലെ തന്നെ നിയമപരമായ വശമുണ്ട്, നിഷ്കാമ സേവനത്തിനെയും ബോധവൽക്കരണത്തിനെയും തലമുണ്ട്. എല്ലാ രീതിയിലുള്ള സമഗ്രമായ ഒരു പ്രയത്നത്തിലൂടെ മാത്രമേ ഇതിന് കുറച്ചെങ്കിലും ഒരു പ്രവൃത്തിത്വം കൊണ്ടുവരാൻ, എല്ലാ രീതിയിലും സമഗ്ര പ്രവൃത്തി കൊണ്ടുവരാൻ നമുക്ക് സാധിക്കുകയുള്ളൂ. അതിന് എല്ലാവർക്കും കഴിയട്ടെ, അതിന് ശക്തി ഉണ്ടാകട്ടെ എന്ന് പരമാത്മാവിനോട് തന്നെ പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുകയാണ്.
Thank you very much indeed.